The electric guitar is one of the most widely recognized inventions of the 20th century. It is also a powerful symbol, not only of popular music itself, but of youth, rebellion, nonconformity, baby boomers, hillbillies, and folk heroes of all stripe. Everyone recognizes an electric guitar, whether to praise or condemn it. The electric guitar's popularity and influence have hardly diminished over the 60 or so years of its existence. This film is about what happens when guitars get old, and about those who look after, repair, sell, and restore the guitars, once imagined to be an ephemeral part of the cultural landscape of the late 20th century.
Personally, I tend to prefer the real thing.
There's a sort of accepted knowledge that gets recycled over and over. Old guitar good, new guitar bad. Valve amp good, transistor amp bad, and it's not as simple as like.
So, yeah, there's no real rubbish guitars anymore.
The value of a guitar may be based on its sound, the materials from which it is made, who owned it, its association with fads and fashions, and many other factors. Like much of the music they serve, cheap old guitars have gained a respectability that seemed unlikely decades ago, when rock and roll, rhythm and blues, and country were pariah genres populated by unrespectable musicians, and in which guitar necks were regularly mistaken for genitalia.
I tell you what, a lot of people think that we've made it all up. Oh, that's ridiculously expensive guitar, and you say, well, it's a 63, whatever. They don't know what you're talking about. And you must have made it up, oh, we'll just charge a load of money for this old guitar. And there's no basis in reality. And there is, just like old violins, the guys who are the cream of the crop in violin terms, they use 17th century original violins when they're doing proper pieces. They don't use a brand new 70 quid violin from China, do they? So there's a reason for it.
Things that makes these guitars so great to play, and it mustn't be overlooked, is the way it makes you feel. Just standing there holding a guitar that's worth, 15,000 quid, that's a good feeling. The fact that after, this is 63, so that's 5 decades old, there's nothing wrong with it, so it's never going to go wrong. It's as it will always be now.
In 1958 you went to a music store, this was on the wall, the flying V was on the wall, so, or your Telecaster or whatever, you got in there, you picked up the Les Paul or the flying V or the Strat or the Telecaster. It doesn't matter which one you picked up, it was all killer instrument. It just happened that you couldn't buy a bad Fender or a bad Gibson at that time.
this is one of the guitars that kind of started the whole vintage revolution, because they seemed to be better than the guitars that were being made later than this, say late 60s, early 70s, when the Beatles and other bands, even the rock and roll era, had really engendered this massive desire for kids to have guitars. So the production of the better companies like Fender and Gibson, Gretsch, Rickenbacker, went through the roof, so they couldn't keep up the quality as well as the quantity.
It has to be said, it was on the back of the Les Paul, really. Les Paul was the first one. I think what happens is, in the old days when you'd have your guitar and you were a Strat man or you were a Yamaha SG man, that was your guitar. Now, people have their Strat, they have to have a Tele, they have to have a Les Paul, they have to have a 335.
I don't know, 50 quid to 500 pounds, you could buy a Fender, a Gibson, any age, any vintage, even a Les Paul will cost you, a burst, 59 burst will cost you 500-600 pounds. At the most, it was a high-end guitar. And the collectors were not interested, they were musicians. Everybody bought a guitar for 500 quid and used it. But people start realizing those guitars are actually fantastic players and fantastic sounding, and if you want to reproduce Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin tone, or that Paul Kossoff, that Jimi Hendrix or Jerk Beck sound, very often what you heard on the record is one of those, being a Gibson or a Fender, or if you listen to Roy Buchanan, he played an old Telecaster. If you want that sound, that's what he used. You can hear the sound of a vintage guitar.
You've got a good guitarist who can make a piece of rubbish sound wonderful. But if you can't play guitar, you're just making a noise.